A lot of people don't understand when they look at a veterans organization why we would feel it's necessary to work with police officers, for firefighters, and those in that first responder community. Can you talk to some of the unique challenges in a perfect world? So not the 2020, 2021 world, but in a perfect world, some of the unique challenges that those in law enforcement and those in the fire service are dealing with that would lead them to the need, as you mentioned, for a program like ours.
The difference is, and one basic difference between a guy who goes over to combat to people in first responders, whether it's fire or police, is every day can be different. I mean, I guess that'd be similar to a deployment. I mean, you're not going to get in firefights every day, but you're deployed pretty much your whole career because you never know. You never know, and you go to work and nothing happens, and then you go to work and you see death and debauchery, and whether it's being involved in shootings or the number of things you see are limitless, from victims of domestic abuse, kids being abused, people losing their lives in car accidents. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, you see the worst of society. And the challenges for those guys and what basically happened to me and a lot of law enforcement, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're a guy in the military and you went to someplace like Ramadi or some of those crazy battles, and you go over one person and you come back and you're somebody else, and people around you know it, because there's this huge change because you saw such craziness. And law enforcement's not always like that. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes you see some stuff that's pretty horrific for sure, but it's more of a, like we call it the slow drip, right? You slowly, something happens, you see an accident, you see a death, you go back, you drink some coffee with your buddies, you go to domestic violence, you see a wife being abused, you go back, you hang out with your boys, then you go home from work and you're with your family and you're trying to be this loving dad, and then you go to work, and it's a challenge, a mental challenge, to a point where, there was at times I'd be not at work, and just almost like, man, feeling like these people have no idea what's going on inside me right now. And it's almost like you're two people, right? It's almost like you, and I remember specifically, and this is the best example I could give, is I was working weekend graveyards like I did most of my career. And I worked a Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm coaching my boys in a Pop Warner football game. And I'm standing there on the sideline and everyone's all happy because we're winning, because my team's won. Just saying. But as I was standing there, I just had this thought, like, man, this is so different than what I was doing last night. I don't remember what it was, but it was a crazy Friday night, fights probably, people in jail. And I was like thinking in my head, if these people knew like what I did last night, would they want me around their kids? And not that I did was wrong per se, but man, it was violent. And it's hard to work through that and be that loving dad and feel like it's real. It was real what I was doing. I loved coaching. I loved being around the kids. I loved, being a husband. But at that same time, then you go to work and you would see the things you would. And, like men, like all men, we just shove it down. That's what we do. And there's a separation of what you want to be to somebody you have to be to survive as a police officer. You can't just go in there and be all emotional. So you've got to learn how to push that stuff down so you can do your job. And it's definitely a dilemma and some conflict. And, that one day you wake up, like for me, I mean, about 5 years in my career, I woke up, I had no idea how I became the person I did. And it was slowly over time. But at the beginning of my career, man, my thoughts, my heart was one thing. And I would have never thought I could have became the person I did 5-6 years later in my career. I would have said, nope, that's not me. I wouldn't do that. And sure enough, I did. And I fell in some things that, obviously I'm not proud of. And mostly just my heart was very, very dark at one point. You get the bitterness and anger, and you shove it down, and I'd go to church and smile and be happy. And I mean, I'd put on that face of being happy and then go to work and become that cop again. So it's a tough mentally for sure. It's tough emotionally for sure to balance that. Yeah. And unless you're really, really grounded, and it's hard to stay on the path, stay on that course of the person you really want to be, regardless if you know who that is, let alone if you don't.
Yeah. We talk in our programs often about wearing a mask and how, we all wear a mask and we need to lower that mask and get behind that. I do think for a combat veteran, that analogy rings true. You wear a mask, and we always talk about when you are out of the military, you need to stop acting like you're in the military. You need to understand you're not there anymore. And although it's great to be proud of your service and those things, don't identify with that. Don't make that who you are, because that becomes a mask and it prevents you from getting healing. One of the things that is really challenging for those in the first responder community is they wear a mask as well, but it's a defense really against what they're dealing with tonight when they go to work, and what they're dealing with, like you said, they coach the football game. Well, they need to wear a different mask than when they're at work, and working through that is very, very difficult. How do you navigate that? How do you become authentic and true when you're kind of one foot in both of those worlds?
Well, I didn't do a very good job, so I can't tell you how I did it.
We learn all kinds of ways, John. Sometimes it's the way we mess it up.
I can tell you what not to do. Yeah. And this goes back to what I said earlier, as far as I wish I had Mighty Oaks, because I had, we talked about our 4 pillars of staying in the Word, staying in prayer, staying accountable, and staying in fellowship. And simply, if I would have done that, I would have stayed on the course. And the biggest thing, I went to church, I prayed. Obviously, it wasn't that deep prayer when my life was going the wrong direction, but I never had the accountability. And that's probably one big mistake that a lot of officers make. Yeah, I had a lot of friends, I had a buddy I talked to. I would give my life in a second for my partners, but I wouldn't tell them what was going on inside me.
Right.
So one clear thing is that brother, is that guy that you can trust with, like we say, the deepest, darkest secrets inside your heart. Do you have that person? And then along with that, will that person tell you to do the right thing? Will they hold you accountable? Will they tell you, hey, idiot, you're married, you need to do this, or you don't need to go to the bar and drink, or whatever it is, you need that, and it's establishing like who you want to be as a man. And I knew who I wanted to be as a man. That's clear. From the time I was 17, I wanted to be a Christian man. I wanted a family, and I had that. And then I lost it. But I never had anybody, and that was my fault for not. I had people around me for sure. I had people in my church. There's some police officers that was Christian. There's people I could have reached out to and would have held me accountable. But I chose, for whatever reason, not to, because we look at it as a weakness.
Right.
If I would have told guys what was happening inside me as a police officer, I at the time I would have thought, man, I'm weak. I'm not going to show any weakness. Especially after the reputation I kind of established as a police officer. I was a pretty aggressive police officer. I couldn't do that. And a lot of us, just men in general, it doesn't matter what you do, we have that pride. Like, we can't show weakness.
Right. In
reality, that is a weakness. That was a huge weakness I had that led me down the path it did. So back to your question is, man, how can you navigate that? Man, you got to know who you want to be as a man, for sure. And it's got to be solid. And then you got to have a solid plan and how you're going to walk your life. You're going to have the challenges. Police officers, we know what the challenges are going to be, for sure. You're going to have temptations out there. Women throwing themselves at you, the ability to do the right or wrong thing that nobody's going to find out.
Right.
There's temptations and challenges every day for your moral, your integrity. Everything that you want, everything I wanted to be as a man. I was solid, and I lost my way for sure.